Welcome to the Paul Chandler Show, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In today's episode, we're going to be coding cataracts because if you have glasses or not, and sometimes maybe a little bit cloudy, and I was like, yeah, it's not my glasses. No, it actually was me. So in this episode of the show, we'll be looking at the different types of procedures that we can do when we code cataracts. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. And now that we're back, everyone, we're going to be coding cataracts. Now, the thing is, though, with the CPT book, remembering that the good old lovely AMA, the American Medical Association, they're the ones who write the CPT book for us coders and auditors to use. And I will admit, this may just be my OCD kicking in or a little pet peeve of mine. However, though, I think that coding cataracts can be a pain in the rear end, just because how they're placed in the CPT book. But pain in the rear ends, that's what colonoscopies are for. We're gonna talk about cataracts, and that's when you get like cloudy area in your lens. And as far as how it's organized, it's things that the AMA doctors, they move codes out of sequence all the time. However, though, they not do it with this section, because we're gonna start looking at code 66982. And we see with 66982, then we have the KIT code 66987, which is resequenced. That's one set option that we have. And then it goes to code 66983. I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because 66984 goes together with the KIT code 66988. And then we have three more separate codes in this section. So first we have 66983. And then it skips through and jumps, because we have all those resequent codes, to 66985. So even though 66983 and 66985 are only numerically just two numbers off, they do have the 66984 and the resequence code 66988 between those two. And then we have the one more option, the 66986 code. So we're going to talk about these codes in this order set first. So first we'll look at 66982, but also seeing how it's almost similar to 66984. So comparing these two parent codes, 66982 and 66984, both of these codes are the extracapsular cataract removal. So that is one variance first, that they're extracapsular. Both the codes here in orange, and then the code set here in pink. And then cataract removal with insertion of intraocular lens prosthesis for 66982, and 66984 with insertion of intraocular lens prosthesis. I'm just going to double check back, make sure I get my spelling here correctly. So we have that for the orange 66982 and 87. Same thing for the pink 66984 and 66988, where it's also including the insertion of the intraocular lens prosthesis. So far these codes are identical. Remember, we can never have two identical CPT codes, because if we do, then the lovely doctors at the AMA really messed up. So looking at the differences though, at this point we have both our manual or mechanical technique, but notice how 66982 and 87, after the phrase manual or mechanical technique, then we have complex, requiring devices or techniques not generally used in routine cataract surgery. And then we have some examples there in parentheses. E.g., such as iris expansion device, suture support for intraocular lens, or primary posterior capsulorhexis, or performed on patients in the ambulogenic developmental stage. So the key phrase difference here, and I'll just put complex instead of writing all that additional description on the board. So we have complex procedure for 66982, while 66984 does not show that. And we have between with the parent codes and the kid codes. You can notice though that the parent codes 66982 and 984 both say without endoscopic, and I'm going to hold my book up because this is, and I used to think that esophageal-gastroduodenoscopy was the most difficult word to say in the CPT book, but this one may take the cake. So 66982 and 66984 are both without endoscopic cyclophotocoagulation. Yeah, that sounds good to me. So both of those are without it. I'll write that over here, and I'll just do without endoscopic psycho blah 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 blah. But then we have the kid codes, corresponding kid codes, 66987 and 66988, if it's with the endoscopic coagulate blah 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 that big fancy word. So first, looking at what we're doing with these procedures. So as far as cataracts, cataracts can either be extracapsular or they can be intracapsular. So it all depends on the location of the cataract itself. And part of the reason why I don't like on how it's formatted in the CPT book. So we have 66982 extracapsular, 66983 intracapsular, 66984 extracapsular. How it kind of goes back and forth. Because spoiler alert, we're going to see in a few moments how 66985 is intracapsular. So it goes extra, intra, extra, intra. I personally don't like that yo-yoing back and forth, but that's how the doctors do the book. And so with the cataracts, they can either be just location, they can be extracapsular or intracapsular for the types of cataracts. And for the two that are the two code choices that we have that are extracapsular, and both of them include removing the extracapsular cataract, and we're inserting an intraocular lens prosthesis in both those options. And the only difference we have here is though, is that a complex procedure, which 66982 lists the different examples of what we mean by complex. Something that's also kind of weird with this, usually in most other parts of the CPT book, the more comprehensive, the more in-depth, the more complex procedures are usually listed after the more simple ones, if you will. However, here, 66984 is actually less work than 66982, but the 66982, the complex, is listed first. So it's just kind of another weird area about this topic for this section of codes. Then, like I said, we have 66983 and 66985. The intracapsular, so the 66983, the intracapsular cataract extraction. So that is the intracapsular. So instead of the option that we have for extracapsular for those two, we have the one option for intracapsular cataract extraction with insertion of intraocular lens prosthesis. So we're still inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. And then we have the 66985. We have the option, insert of intraocular lens prosthesis not associated with concurrent cataract removal. So we have 3 different code sets for cataract removal. 66982 and 66984 involve extracapsular cataract removal. We have the one option for intracapsular cataract removal, the 66983. And in both of those code sets, we're inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. However, though, we have an option for 66985. There's no cataracts that we're removing, but we're still putting in that lens prosthesis. So 66985 is no removal, but still the insert of the intraocular lens prosthesis. And then the 66986, exchange of intraocular lenses. So we're doing an exchange, intraocular lens out and new intraocular lens in for the 66986. So exchange of intraocular lens. So we can see and kind of color coding with each different section here for the cataract removals. Okay, so the main part to recap. So we have the 2 main sets for extracapsular. You can remember we have extracapsular and intracapsular types of cataracts. For the 2 types of code sets for the extracapsular cataract removals, 66982 if it's complex, and 66984 if it's just standard, if you will. Both of those do include not only the extracapsular cataract removal, but also inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. And then how this set we do have the parent code and the kid code. The parent code is if without having endoscopic cyclophotocoagulation, there we go. And if we do include endoscopic cyclophotocoagulation, then we drop down to the kid codes. 66987 if it's a complex procedure, or 66988 if it's a standard procedure. And while we have the 2 extracapsular code sets, we have the one for if it's intracapsular cataract, the 66983, and that does also include not just removing the intracapsular cataract, but also inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. So we do have 3 separate removal codes, the 2 extracapsular and the 1 intracapsular, that all 3 of those do include inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. We have a separate code, that's all that we're doing. We're not removing any of the cataracts, we're just inserting the intraocular lens prosthesis. That'll take us to only code 66985. Or if in the case, maybe it's been a while since the surgery and the patient needs to have the lens exchanged, then the patient can have the intraocular lens exchange, so the old one goes out, new one goes in. Nothing about removing other cataracts, we're just swapping out the lenses for the 66986. And remember that for the month of January, for the Paul Chandler Show, all the Monday episodes will be coding different procedures. Then on Wednesdays, we'll be using the Padzilla to actually show you the surgeries being performed. So stay tuned for the episode on this Wednesday, where we'll be having the Padzilla up again, and I'll be showing you a cataract removal surgery actually going on. And as it's going on, I'll be explaining it. So that way, as far as coders and auditors, we can see the video illustration on what the doctor's doing. So that way we can put that into the words when we're coding it or auditing it based on the documentation. So from all of us here, the cast and crew of the Paul Chandler Show, we do thank you for watching and have an awesome rest of your night.